Some contracts are written in ink, others in betrayal. This one was written in both. Listen closely.
He handed me the prenup on Valentine's Day, whispering protection as champagne bubbles kissed our lips. Little did he know, Clause 7B, the infidelity penalty, was written in my favorite shade of red. This year, his gift wasn't chocolates. It was his entire portfolio, delivered by my lawyer with a bow. His protection became my favorite weapon.
If you've ever questioned a gift, you'll understand what happens next.
The champagne flute felt like chilled betrayal in my hand. Around us, our favorite restaurant, Cœur Éternel, had transformed into a cliché of Valentine's devotion. Red roses on every table, heart-shaped everything, and the kind of dim lighting that promised forever. My husband, Julian, reached across the linen, his fingers brushing mine. They were the same fingers that just last week had traced the skyline from our penthouse window as he dreamt aloud about his legacy. I thought he meant our future. I was wrong. For us, my love, he murmured, his voice the velvet bass that had once made my knees weak. He slid the embossed folio toward me. Not a jewelry box, a document. Protection for both of us. A modern marriage is a partnership, and every partnership needs structure. The cover was cold, expensive leather. I opened it. The words swam. Prenuptial Agreement Addendum. Amendment of Financial Protections. My heart, which had been beating a hopeful rhythm against my ribcage, stilled. This was our 5th Valentine's Day. The previous 4 had brought me Cartier, BVLGRI, Van Cleef. This year brought legalese. I took a slow sip of champagne, letting the bubbles burst like tiny screams on my tongue. Protection from what, exactly? He smiled, all practiced charm. From life's uncertainties. My new venture capital firm, the risks are substantial. This simply shields what's ours from my business liabilities. His eyes held mine, the candlelight dancing in their familiar hazel depths. It's for us. But as I flipped through, my training as a forensic financial analyst kicking in automatically, I saw the real story. Buried in the florid legal jargon of Section 4, marital conduct and asset forfeiture, was Clause 7B, the infidelity penalty. It stipulated that in the event of provable marital misconduct by either party, the offending spouse would forfeit 70% of their separate property and all marital assets would be subject to immediate reallocation. He'd highlighted it in gold marker. A romantic gesture, he probably thought. See, he said, pointing to the clause, his finger resting on the word misconduct. This protects you. It gives you power. The irony was so thick I could taste it, bitter beneath the champagne. He thought he was showcasing his loyalty by punishing disloyalty. He didn't realize he was handing me a loaded gun, the safety already off. It's very thorough, I said, my voice miraculously steady, a soft smile playing on my lips. The perfect, trusting wife. My lawyer insisted. It's bulletproof. He puffed his chest slightly, the conqueror of contracts. Sign it and we can forget it exists. It's just a formality. I let my gaze drift from the document to his face, to the single, perfect rose in the vase between us. I thought of the digital forensics course I'd just completed, the one he'd teased me about. My little detective, he'd called me, kissing my forehead. Of course, my love, I whispered, reaching for the solid gold pen he offered, if it makes you feel secure. I signed my name, Alara Thorne, with a flourish, the ink flowing smooth and dark. The moment the pen left the paper, something shifted. The romantic music, the whispered promises from other tables, the very scent of roses, it all receded, replaced by a cold, crystalline clarity. He beamed, folding the document away as if locking away a minor detail. He ordered more champagne, toasting to our unbreakable future. I clinked my glass to his, the crystal singing a high, clear note. But in my mind, I wasn't toasting, I was analyzing. Clause 7B wasn't my shackle, it was my chessboard. He'd just defined the rules of a game he didn't know we were playing, and he'd foolishly, arrogantly given me the rulebook. As he leaned in for a kiss, his lips tasting of Dom Perignon and deceit, I kissed him back. I let him believe the contract was his victory, because the greatest lies aren't the ones you tell with words, but the truths you let someone believe they've discovered for themselves. He thought he'd built a fortress. He'd just drawn me a perfect map of all its hidden doors.
The pen was in her hand. The power was about to be two. The months following that Valentine's Day were a masterclass in performance. I played my part as a devoted, trusting wife with the precision of a forensic analyst building a case. Every smile, every kiss, every whispered "I love you" was a piece of evidence meticulously logged in the ledger of our charade. Julian, believing his contract had secured my compliance, grew more brazen, mistaking my calculated silence for blissful ignorance. Our love became a series of transactions. He'd gift me a diamond tennis bracelet, a guilt offering after a late night at the office that reeked of another woman's perfume, something floral and cheap beneath the sharp notes of his usual cologne. I'd accept it with a dazzling smile, wearing it as I quietly ran a background check on the boutique's receipt, tracing it not to his corporate card, but to a new, discreet personal account named JT Holdings. He'd plan a romantic weekend to Sonoma, all rolling vineyards and couples massages. As he dozed in the California sun, I'd be reverse engineering his phone's hotspot data, noting the flurry of encrypted messaging activity that pinged a cell tower near our home every Thursday from 7 to 9 p.m., the exact window of his weekly men's squash league. The most intimate space became my laboratory. Our shared cloud storage, once filled with photos of us, now held my digital evidence board. Folder names were innocuous: home renovation ideas, tax documents 2024. Inside, they contained screenshots, financial trails, and metadata logs. His protection had made me a student of his every move. The real turning point came on our anniversary, 6 months after the prenup. He gifted me a stunning emerald necklace, the stones the exact shade of his mistress's eyes, a fact I'd learned from a deeply buried Instagram tag he'd forgotten to untag himself in. As he clasped it around my neck, his breath warm on my skin, he whispered, "To forever, my beautiful wife." That night, as he slept, I didn't check his phone or dig through statements. I simply lay there, the cold emeralds against my collarbone, and conducted the most important audit of all, the emotional one. The man beside me wasn't the man I'd married. That man was gone, replaced by a stranger who used intimacy as a distraction and thought love could be bound by clauses. The next morning, I initiated phase 2. Clause 7B required forensic-level proof of marital misconduct. Legally, suspicion wasn't enough. I needed irrefutable evidence, the kind that would hold up not just in the court of my broken heart, but in the court of law. Using my professional credentials, I accessed, through entirely legal proprietary financial tracking software, the transaction history for JT Holdings. The data unfolded like a love letter to his betrayal. Regular, sizable transfers to a boutique hotel in the city, payments to a luxury florist, a recurring charge for a private members-only art gallery that I'd never heard of. Then I found the pièce de résistance, a single massive withdrawal dated for the upcoming week. The memo line read, V-Day, Eternity Ring. My blood ran cold, then hot with a fury so pure it felt like clarity. He wasn't just cheating, he was planning to gift her an eternity ring, the ultimate symbol of forever, likely while giving me some rushed, thoughtless bouquet on the actual day. The violation was breathtaking in its cruelty. I closed the software, my hands steady. The romantic dinners, the whispered promises, the weight of his body next to me, it had all been a shell game. But I was no longer the mark. I was the auditor who had just found the hidden ball. The game was no longer about catching him. It was about letting him hang himself with the very rope, the very claws he'd so proudly handed to me. His protection was now my blueprint, and his upcoming misguided Valentine's gesture was going to be the key to unlocking his own financial undoing. Receipts don't lie, and neither do I. Keep listening. Valentine's Day dawned with a saccharine pink sunrise, the kind the greeting card companies would have you believe was an omen of love. In our marble-clad bathroom, Julian whistled as he shaved, his reflection in the mirror a portrait of a man who believed he was master of 2 universes. I watched him from the doorway, already dressed in the deep crimson silk dress he'd bought me for the occasion, a costume for my final performance. "Big day today, my love," he said, catching my eye in the mirror, his smile slick with anticipation. For me? For her? Perhaps for the sheer thrill of the deception itself. "The biggest," I agreed, my voice honey smooth. "I've made us reservations at Le Jardin Secret, 8 p.m. The restaurant was an institution, impossible to get into, especially on Valentine's. I'd called in a significant favor from a client to secure it. A flicker of panic, instantly masked, crossed his face. He'd clearly made plans of his own. Darling, that's perfect, but I have a crucial closing at the office that might run late. A Hong Kong deal. Time zones, you know? Of course, I purred, walking over to straighten his tie. My fingers brushed his neck, feeling the jump of his pulse. Your work comes first. We can push it to 9:30. I'll have a cocktail at the bar and admire all the overpriced roses. The relief in his eyes was a physical thing. It gave him just enough time. His script was so predictable. A rushed early dinner with me, then a client call that would allow him to slip away to his real celebration. He thought he was juggling. He didn't realize I was the one tossing him the balls. You're the most understanding woman in the world, he breathed, pulling me in for a kiss. I let him, even deepening it, letting him taste the victory on my lips. It was the last kiss of our marriage. I made sure it was a good one. The day unfolded with metronomic precision. At noon, a stunning bouquet of black roses arrived for me at the house. The card read, "For my mysterious queen, until tonight, Jay." Black roses, for death, for endings, how poetically unaware. I placed them on the kitchen island, their dark petals a stark contrast to the sterile white marble, and took a forensic-grade photograph. His closing was, as I'd predicted, a cover. Using the encrypted tracker I'd embedded in his car's software, a little trick from my digital forensics toolkit, I watched his blue dot on my screen not go to the financial district, but to the exclusive jewelers in the diamond exchange. He was collecting the eternity ring. My heart didn't break. It crystallized. Every doubt, every aching hope hardened into a single sharp point of purpose. Our dinner at Le Jardin Secret was a surreal pantomime. He was distracted, checking his watch, laughing a half-second too late at my jokes. He presented me with a delicate necklace, a heart, of course, and fumbled with the clasp. I complimented his taste, all while mentally inventorying the evidence. His nervous sweat, the new cufflinks I'd never seen before, a gift from her, no doubt, the way his phone was placed face down on the table, buzzing with silent notifications. "I'm so sorry, Alara," he sighed dramatically as dessert arrived, reaching for his phone. "This Hong Kong call. I have to take it. It'll just be 20 minutes. Wait for me?" "Always," I whispered, watching him hurry toward the exit, not to the lobby for privacy, but out into the night, toward the waiting Uber I could see idling on the street through the window. As his taillights disappeared, I didn't weep into my chocolate souffle. I opened the custom forensic app on my phone, the one synced to the audio beacon I'd sewn into the lining of his suit jacket that morning. A clear, real-time feed began to play. I heard a car door open, a feminine laugh, the clink of glasses, and his voice thick with warmth he'd forgotten with me. "Happy Valentines, my actual forever. Ready for your surprise?" I took a slow, deliberate bite of the souffle. It was rich, bitter, and perfect. I signaled the waiter. "Could you pack this to go?" I asked, gesturing to Julian's untouched dessert. "And bring me the check, please, separate from my husband's. I believe he's concluded his business for the evening." I paid with my own card, the one linked to the separate account I'd been quietly funding for months. The receipt was not just a piece of paper, it was a declaration of independence. I left it on the table, weighted down with his wedding band which I'd discreetly slipped from his discarded napkin when he stood to leave. He'd gone to give another woman a symbol of forever. He would return to find the symbol of our forever left behind, next to a bill he no longer had the right to pay. The first concrete evidence of the end, placed as delicately as a chess piece making its opening move. The forensic proof was no longer just digital, it was physical, emotional, and waiting for him in the empty chair beside me.
He left for her. He'll return to nothing. The math is beautiful. The silence in our penthouse when I returned was not empty. It was full of the echo of ending. I changed out of the crimson silk, folding it neatly as if it were evidence being bagged, and slipped into a crisp white shirt and tailored trousers, armor for what was to come. I poured a glass of ice water, the cubes cracking like tiny bones, and waited at the moonlit window overlooking the sleeping city. At 1:07 a.m., his key fumbled in the lock. He entered not with the guilt of a caught man, but with the irritated fatigue of someone whose perfect evening had been mildly inconvenienced. He froze when he saw me, a silhouette against the glass.
Alara, you're up. The call was a nightmare, then the car service. His lie died in his throat as his eyes dropped to the coffee table. There, under the focused beam of a designer lamp, sat 3 items: his wedding band, the receipt from Le Jardin Secret with my solo signature, and a single glossy 8x10 photograph. He stepped closer, squinting. The photograph showed him from a discreet distance, standing outside the jeweler's earlier that day, a distinctive robin's egg blue box in his hand, a box from a jeweler famous for its vintage engagement and eternity rings. "What is this?" he demanded, his voice shedding its fatigue, sharpening into a blade. "Exhibit A," I said, my tone clinical, turning from the window. "The beginning of a chain of custody. The timestamp is embedded in the metadata. The geolocation matches the purchase record for an eternity ring from JT Holdings, withdrawn yesterday. The ring, I presume, is not in your pocket." His face paled, but anger rushed in to fill the void. "You're having me followed? This is insane. That was a gift for a client's wife, a business transaction." "Of course," I nodded, as if considering it. I walked to the sideboard and picked up a thin manila folder, which explains why the same JT Holdings fund has been paying for a suite at the Viridian Hotel every Thursday for the past 7 months, the same hotels whose Wi-Fi login credentials are saved on your phone under the profile Sanctuary. I opened the folder, presenting a printed log. "And why this client's wife, according to the audio recording from your jacket this evening, has a laugh that sounds remarkably like Lydia from your mergers team." The use of her name was the detonation. His arrogant defiance shattered. He actually staggered back a step, hitting the arm of the sofa. You recorded me?" Clause 7B of our Valentine's addendum specifies forensic-level proof, Julian. Suspicion is not proof. Hearsay is not proof. I placed the folder down next to the photograph. A digital trail of concealed financial transactions, photographic evidence of purchase, and a clear, time-stamped audio recording of you with another woman on a marital holiday referencing a gift, that meets the standard. In fact, my lawyer informs me it's almost textbook. The word lawyer hit him like a physical blow. "Your lawyer? What have you done?" "I have initiated the penalty clause. As per the agreement you drafted and you insisted I sign for protection, your provable marital misconduct triggers a forfeiture of 70% of your separate property and allows for immediate reallocation of our marital assets. My legal team filed the motion 3 hours ago. They have all the evidence. The court will see it tomorrow." He stared at me, truly seeing me for the first time in years, not as his wife, but as a force, a predator he had unknowingly unleashed. "You planned this," he whispered, a horrifying awe in his voice. "All of it. The dinner reservation, the tracking. You let me." "I conducted a forensic investigation," I corrected. "You provided the motive, the means, and the evidence. I simply connected the dots with a better pen than yours." He lunged then, not at me, but for the folder and photograph. I didn't move. "Originals are in a digital vault with my counsel. Copies are with the court. Those are for your review." His hands trembled above the materials, not touching them as if they were radioactive. The reality of his own design backfiring was a cage closing around him. The prenup was no longer a shield. It was a mirror reflecting his own destruction back at him. "You can't do this," he breathed, but it was a plea, not a statement. "It's already done," I said, checking the elegant watch on my wrist, a watch I'd bought with my own money from my own account. "In fact, your assets are already frozen. The JT Holdings account, your offshore funds in the Caymans, the vintage car collection, all of it. My forensic audit was quite thorough." The doorbell rang, a soft two-tone chime in the overwhelming silence. He looked at me, wild-eyed. "Who is that?" "My lawyer," I said, walking past him toward the door. "And a process server. They're here to formally serve you the papers and discuss the temporary restraining order regarding the marital residence. You should probably call your own counsel." I paused, hand on the knob, and looked back at him, a man reduced to a legal problem in his own living room. "I'd offer you a drink, but I believe the bar is now part of the reallocated marital assets." I opened the door to the cool night air and the sober professional faces of my liberation. His Valentine's Day of 2 forever promises ended with just one, the forever consequence of his own contract. Checkmate doesn't always come on a board. Sometimes it comes in a manila folder. 6 months later, the final decree arrived, not with the dramatic knock, but as a PDF attachment on a perfectly ordinary Tuesday morning. I was in my new office, a sun-drenched loft with views of the river, paid for with the first disbursement from the reallocated marital assets. I clicked open the document. The legal language was dry, but one line shimmered with poetic justice. Respondent shall transfer 72% of separate holdings per enforceable penalty clause 7B to petitioner. 72. My lawyer had fought for an extra 2%, citing egregious intent. I approved. Julian's empire hadn't just been divided, it had been forensically dissected. The venture capital firm, stripped of its liquid assets, was a hollow shell. The penthouse was on the market. The vintage car collection, sold at auction, the proceeds now funding a scholarship for women in forensic finance. The irony was a private delight I sipped slowly, like fine wine. My Valentine's gift to myself arrived a week later, a simple framed piece of parchment. It was the original prenuptial addendum, the one signed over champagne bubbles at Cour Eternelle. I'd had it mounted with a tasteful plaque beneath it that read, Clause 7B, the cost of misconduct. I hung it not as a trophy of his failure, but as a reminder of my own awakening, that the most dangerous weapon is often the one your enemy believes safeguards them. The final piece of closure came from an unexpected source. A small tracked package arrived. The return label was from Lydia, the woman with the distinctive laugh. Inside, nestled in black velvet, was the eternity ring. The accompanying note was brief, scrawled in hurried handwriting. He said it was a family heirloom. I found the receipt. It feels heavy. You should have it. I'm sorry. I held the ring up to the light. The diamonds were cold, flawless, and utterly empty. I didn't keep it. I had it melted down and the stones repurposed into a sleek modern bracelet, a symbol of transformation, not stagnation. I thought the victory would taste like the sharp tang of champagne, but it was quieter. It was the taste of morning coffee in a silent apartment that belonged only to me. It was the weight of my own credit card in my hand. It was the ability to say no without calculating the emotional cost. The prenup he thought would protect him did exactly that. It protected me from his lies, from my own naivety, and from a future that was merely a beautiful gilded cage. He'd written the clause thinking it would never be used, a theatrical flourish to demonstrate his own imagined fidelity. In doing so, he handed me the scalpel for my own liberation. And so this story ends not with a kiss, but with a signature on a document that sealed my freedom, not with a whispered forever, but with the profound, resonant silence of a debt paid in full. My gratitude to you, listener, for every silent cheer for a woman reclaiming her narrative and her assets. Your time is precious. May this story remind you, the most powerful clause you hold is the one that protects your own peace.